working at the BBC, I think I started in the late 60s, mid-60s, as long ago as that. Romeo and Juliet, when they used to do big plays, they don't do them anymore. I did Romeo and Juliet with Hal Bennett. We used to go on the third floor at the television centre, all that actors with our photograph, and go around the directors' rooms in lunch break when no one knows, and shove our pictures under the door. And it was my picture. And on the back it said, Michael Gambon, how tall you were, whether you could ride a horse, all those things. And you'd go around shoving the pictures under the doors. And I was constantly working there. I don't know how I got the audition, but I was presented to him in this big rehearsal room in Aquinas Street. And he said, what are you going to do for me? And I didn't know who he was. I mean, it's hard to believe, I didn't really know who he was. And I said, I was right close to him. He was sitting at a trestle table, and I was towering over him. I said, oh, Richard III. And he said, yes, which part? I said, Richard III. He said, no, but which part? Is it Catesby, Buckingham, one of the... I said, no, Richard III. He said, what, the title role? I said, yes. And he said, well, you've got a bit of a nerve, haven't you? I didn't know what he meant. I said, oh, he said, right, start doing it. So I started doing it. I immediately went like that. I said, was ever a woman in this? And he said, no. He said, no. He said, you're right on top. You can't do that now on top of me. He said, go to the back of the hall, get up at the end of the hall so that you full length, and then do the Richard III, when I can see you, and see if I can hear you. So I started walking up this long rehearsal room. It had columns in it. And I got to the very final, my heart pounding. I got to the end column right away from him, and as I got there, I suddenly had a brainwave. I thought, I'll swing round the column like that, poof, come back round and start this speech with a hump and everything. Must have been. So I dived at a column, spun round it, come round the aisle, said, was ever a woman in this? And then a nail in the column, a wooden column, going right through my finger, and the blood pouring out. And I said, I didn't take any notice. I said, and he said, no, stop. He said, something terrible. Stop. I said, oh, yeah, all right. He said, the blood pouring. I said, I'm sorry, it's all right, though. He said, no. He said, quick. And he came down with a handkerchief, wrapped it around my hand. And he said, is it all right? I said, yes, I'll carry on. He said, no. He said, you're badly injured. He said, he said, you go away now. He said, and we'll see you later. So I went away, and the next morning I got a telephone call offering me a job. So he must have just thought I was a clown, really. We just stood there like that every night with a spear, like that, with a steel helmet on and a breastplate. Could have been anyone. And we just turned out like that. God, it was for half an hour, and then after half an hour you'd go like that, turn, walk off, stand in the wings, come back on again. Oh, and we used to have radios in our breastplates. You know, little wire up there underneath the help, and listen to the radio while the show was going. So I did that, and then I did all sorts of walk-on parts like that. And then finally I booked an appointment to see him in his office, and he said, what do you want? I said, I've come to ask you if you give me better parts. he was a joker, he was a very funny man. He said, better parts? He said, whose parts do you want? I said, no, I don't want anyone's parts. He said, do you want me to take parts away from famous actors? I said, no, I just wanted it, if possible, for me to play better parts. He said, well, I don't know, Michael, I don't know. I tell you what, and he made a phone call to Birmingham Rep, and he got me in there for a year, so he gave me better parts. And there I went to Birmingham Rep and played lots of parts for a year, and I played Othello. I played Othello myself, having just been in his one at the National Theatre. And I literally copied him. All the moves he did that were enthralling and brilliant, and the things with his hands like that he would do, I copied them all. That was my first break into television. And it was the first ever BBC Two colour adventure series set in the, I forget what century it would be, the 17th century. And I was the oldest member, the son of a family who lived in a castle just in Stirling, somewhere near Stirling, above the Trossachs, you know. And I spent 2 years doing it, riding a white horse across the lowlands, fighting the reavers and battles. And it was a great part. Singing Detective was 1985, BBC again, so I owe everything to BBC. And John Emile, the director, met me for lunch in a restaurant in Kensington and gave me these 6 scripts. And it was overwhelming. I gave them to all my friends to read, and what do they think of that? And they all said it was a great work of art, and it was very complicated. So in we went. I jumped into the water, and it was terrific. I spent 7 months like in a dark tunnel. Dennis Potter used to say, you never speak to me much, do you? I said, no, I don't know what to say. I'm always in awe of you. I said, you're intellectual and man, and I'm just a dummy actor. I never know what to say to you. He said, well, what interests you in life? And what could you talk to? I said, well, I quite like cars, you see. He said, and every time he met me after that, he'd say, what do you think of the new Ford Anglia? So he treated me like a kid. He was at the read-throughs, and he used to come into the filming in the hospital when we shot the scenes in Tottenham. In fact, he used to turn up when Joanne Whalley was on the set. I don't blame him. But he would always be there when she was called. So we had a read-through, and I watched him very carefully. I watched the way his buckled hands, so I copied him exactly. I used to tell journalists it took 2 hours to put the makeup on. It took about 20 minutes, actually. But the makeup girls got extra dosh. And when I did full naked scenes with them totally stripped off, we'd have 5 makeup girls doing that. And we'd book in at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd get extra dosh for that. We'd turn up about 7. But the first day we tried the full makeup. They put it on at 5. I had 5 girls doing me naked. Imagine what that was like. Horrific. And so we started at 5, and they made me up. And at 5:30, I was finished. So we all went. I showered it off, went down the fry-up cafe with 5 young makeup girls, had breakfast. So we used to cheat that from then on.
I had on my best pajamas, the ones with red stripes and blue forget-me-nots. I was all dressed up on talcum under the armpits. $1 million was about to call. I was ready for it.
After that, at the BBC, I had loads of things, but Ghosts was one thing I did, and I think I played Pastor Manders. Judi Dench, Ken Branagh, but terrible things happened. Corpsing, I'm a terrible corpser, yes. And so is Judy. She never stops corpsing. She's worse than I am. And I remember we had to do an opening sequence of Ghosts in a dark room at a big dining table, and all sitting around the table. And we said to the director, "Can we speak? Can we speak while this?" He said, "Yes, just mumble to each other." So Richardson was the maid who brought the tray round with the potatoes, and I could feel the table shaking even before she came on. You know that feeling when you're all on the verge of going, and a very powerful feeling. Well, she came on with the potatoes, and they were massive potatoes, that big. There must have been about 20 of them. It was a big tray, and she came to me first. She said, "Pastor Manders," we had to whisper, "Pastor Manders, would you like some potatoes?" I said, "Yes, please, my child. I'll have 8. 8 potatoes. I mean, it would have covered, well, you can imagine, I could hear Judy going, Ken Branagh, it turned into, well, the director stopped it. He said, "Go on, you get out of the studio." You know. He was furious. So we all went out, pulled ourselves together, started again. He said, "If you do this again, I'm throwing you out." So I've always been bad. I can't keep a straight face.
Of course, I don't deny that there may be quite a lot that is attractive about these writings. And I cannot exactly blame you for wishing to keep informed of these intellectual movements from the great world outside, about which one hears so much. After all, you have allowed your son to wander there for a number of years. But one does not have to talk about it, Mrs. Elving.
Wives and Daughters, I loved that. It was a part that I really felt I could play. It fitted me on all levels. It's very rare that when parts, you know. I did that with Tom Hollander, and I love that.
Don't you cast up your mother's wishes to me, sir. You came so near to breaking her heart. What do you do now? You come and go as you please without a word of explanation as to where you go or how you spend my money. What is it you do? Is it gambling, sir, or do you keep a mistress?
Cranford, I played Judi Dench's The Man Who She Loves. And that was a bit difficult because I can't really look at Judy without bursting out laughing. And I had to be very serious in that because I'm a farmer and I fall in love with her. And there's some nice love scenes where I look at her and explain. I enjoyed playing those. But I only had a couple of weeks on that.
I hope the dumplings haven't blunted your appetites too much. My housekeeper doesn't like to serve them. When my father was alive, we always started with dumplings. We didn't get any meat till we'd done justice to the first course.
I think it is a very proper way of doing things. Dinners have gone all topsy-turvy nowadays.
I'm a working actor, and I got to earn a living, and I go through like, not that I'm knocking period drama, and I get different parts. I've just been in Albuquerque making a film with Denzel Washington, playing someone, the world is finished, the world's ended, there's nothing left. I've been doing that, then I fly back to London and do this one. So I literally lucky enough to go from job to job, and when I say why do I do things, I never really know. That's my work. I'm very lucky that I go from these very posh plays to very posh BBC television. And then I do quite posh films if I'm lucky in America. I am quite posh, really. I speak quite posh. When I'm being interviewed on television, not down there where I'm having a fag round the back.
A family? Surely not.
Surely you would not deny her that. She's looked after us so well and for so long.
Mothers die, and that is a fact. Miss Taylor is not young. Oh dear, you should not make matches or predictions. Unfortunately, they all come true.